Why We Teach Babies Animal Sounds by Britt Peterson, read by Jane. The Norwegian band Ylvis's song The Fox, What Does the Fox Say? A catchy and Euro-weird tune with a video including lots of fog machines and whipping bushy tails, brings up a pretty good question. Dog goes woof, cat goes meow, bird goes tweet, and mouse goes squeak. But there's one sound that no one knows. What does the fox say? Well, foxes make a sort of yip and sometimes they howl. But the fact that we don't have a dedicated word for fox noise, like the onomatopoeic words we have for dog, cat, bird, and mouse noises, tells you something about the way humans discuss animals with one another, and most particularly with our children. We tell babies the cow says moo around the same time we tell them the ball is red, and with the same intention, to convey information about the world and to teach language. But moo is not the same kind of information as red. Moo is something more wishy-washy. When we moo at our children, we're not teaching them about cows or even about language in the way we might think. Instead, we're teaching them about our culture. You might think cute animal noises would be easier for infants to learn than the actual words for animals. But according to some researchers, there's no developmental reason that should be true. Amanda Woodward, a psychologist and head of the Infant Learning and Development Lab at the University of Chicago, told me a book like Mr. Brown Can Moo, Can You? Makes a fun story, and maybe it fits with somebody's folk intuition about what might be easy for a baby to understand. But in fact, it's not especially easy for a baby to understand. Part of the reason, Woodward says, is that animal sounds don't sound particularly like animals. My 1-year-old son might be surprised to hear that the cat says meow, given that our cats don't say anything like it. More like meow, with an occasional psht. We're not convincing actual animals either with our meows and woofs. If you go woof to a dog, he's not even going to bark back in the same way he'd bark back to another dog, because you're clearly not making a dog sound, said Colin Allen, professor of cognitive science and the history and philosophy of science at Indiana University, Bloomington, who studies animal cognition. Our vocal cords aren't capable of reproducing most animal sounds, so we rely on these verbal tags, and yet they're a vast oversimplification. Researchers have categorized a variety of sounds from cats, including chatters, trills, murmurs, and squeaks. Some have said cats make up to 35 different vocalizations, but meow is a word in our language, not theirs. For linguists, the debate about animal sound words and words with sound symbolism more generally has traditionally been over just what their relationship is to the noises they describe, namely whether that relationship is arbitrary. The Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure argued in his course in general linguistics that although animal sound words may begin as transparent imitation, what linguists call iconic signs, they become more arbitrary as they evolve. For example, the Latin root pipio, which does sound like a bird peeping, became pigeon, which we don't think of as onomatopoeic. Comparing animal sounds across cultures shows both how rooted in imitation they are and how arbitrary they can become. To English speakers, the Dutch meow and Greek meow of cats are easy enough to grasp, but the Japanese nyan nyan for meow and goro goro for purring are more obscure. In Hungary, meanwhile, purring cats say dorom, while in French it's ron ron. Polish linguists in 2002 asked people to match foreign animal sounds with the correct animal, and discovered that no one could tell their iha ihas, Polish donkey, from their tok toks, Dutch hen, suggesting that what we've ended up with is, in truth, fairly arbitrary indeed. Even though we think these words are iconic, they're not always all that iconic really, Woodward said. We're stylizing it. If animal sound words are at least somewhat culturally specific, then what do ours show us about our culture? One key clue is which animals get sound words and which don't. Just like there's no single English or Norwegian word for fox yip, there's no English word for camel groan, but there is one in Arabic and in Somali. In English, the animals that do get sounds, farm animals and friendly woodland creatures, seem to inhabit the vanished Akkadian landscape of fairy tales and nursery rhymes, like Baa Baa Black Sheep and Old MacDonald, that first introduced animal sounds into children's literature. Gail Melson, Professor Emerita of Psychology and Human Development at Purdue University and author of Why the Wild Things Are, Animals in the Lives of Children, sees this bucolic fantasy as not just a form of nostalgia, but an important imaginative terrain. David Fulks found in his 1999 study, Children's Dreaming and the Development of Consciousness, that familiar farm and woodland animals appeared the most often in preschoolers' dreams, borrowed from books as part of private, personal narratives. Animals are very potent symbols for various aspects of human life, Melson told me, and you can think of sounds that go with various animals as part of that symbolic language. So kids will have lions and tigers and bears, and each will have sounds. Roar goes the lion. This is a way they can express their feeling really wild and enraged and angry. Roar, roar, roar. Whether or not the highly creative riffs on what the fox says in Ylvis's song sound at all like an actual fox, then they could help kids express some inner foxiness. But while we're at it, it might be time to give the fox a real sound name, one that's slightly more pronounceable. Thanks for listening. See you next time.